All right, looks like we're good. All right, 7:01, we'll call our meeting to order. There are no minutes. Probably already saw that in the packet, so we'll skip over that. So we'll jump to new business 4.1. We're Mia right up there.
Excellent. All right. Well, hi. It's good to see all of you officially. And it still feels very weird to be on this side of things. So I'm here to talk about Villages of Light, which, as you could probably guess, is undergoing some changes this year, given the everything. But the committee still kind of wants to put forth some sort of spirit in the Twin Villages, just to kind of, be a light right now. So we are doing a couple major changes. The first, just to put everyone on the same page, there is going to be no parade this year without knowing what the recommendations were going to be and the requirements and just the ways in which it might be impossible to enforce social distancing and all that. We knew there was no way we could have a parade, in November. But right now we are kind of exploring the idea of, for a lack of better phrase, a reverse parade where people could set up stationary displays and then, the audience would drive around in their cars to view them. That is something we're looking into. Still working out the details, and the committee will be meeting soon to discuss this further, but that's one of the things we're thinking. The next thing is Santa's arrival at theater. Again, Santa greeting all of the children one-on-one. Definitely not something that can happen this year. And the other major part of that was the free movie. So over the summer, the chamber has been having some successful drive-in movies in the back parking lot in Damascata. And we're thinking this might be something we can do, in November as well. People can bundle up to go to Gillette, and people can bundle up to watch the parade. So we're thinking they'll be able to bundle up for a drive-in movie. John Roberts is going to go to the Damascata Selectmen at their next meeting, which I think is October 7th, to talk about it then. And Newcastle Realty, who has hosted the giant screen, has already voiced support for the idea. So we're aiming to do a shorter movie so that the time would be comparable to what people are spending outside for the parade. So that's the thought there. Speaking, and on the topic of Santa, we'll probably find a way to incorporate him into some sort of appearance. I'm not sure if that's going to be a pre-taped message or a drive-by at the drive-in, but we do want him there in a safe and respectable manner. Which brings me to my two requests for all of you. The first being if it would be okay if we were to put a large tree up in Veterans Memorial Park as we have in the past. And the second was if it would be okay if we did small trees in on the Newcastle side of the bridge again. This year, we're not going to be asking for tree sponsors. We figured this might not be the year that some of our small businesses would be able to undergo that. And so we're going to have 40 trees with white lights and then ask for volunteers who wish to decorate them to register with Villages of Light, and then we'll assign them a tree to decorate. So yeah, that's kind of the plan. We just started meeting just because with everything going on, we wanted to kind of see how things were settling as we were heading into the fall. The situation's still very fluid, so there may be changes. But yeah, we just kind of wanted to loop you in now. And, this is the first meeting, so it feels very rough. I do apologize for the rambling. So that's it.
Fine. Go ahead, Joel.
I was going to say, when I dropped off the lights to John that were on our tree last year, I told him that this was the year we needed this more than anything. We need all the light we can get. We need all the spirit we can get, and so I'm in full support.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah.
Well, how do we not have our big tree in Veterans Park? It's been there for how many years now? So.
Yep.
Yeah, and I will say Newcastle always brings the light over on your side. Like the town office always looks spectacular, so I'm excited to see what you guys do.
We have to draft Carolyn back to do that again.
I was going to say, I think Carolyn did that.
I'll shoot her a text after this and be like, hey, so
kind of like Ben, we're gonna volunteer her to facilitate everything else. It's like, well, Ben's gonna work on the code, Carolyn's gonna work on the lights. So.
Yeah, I think if you make that part of the motion, she'll be bound to it. So and I'm sure she'll love to watch this later.
Well,
Yeah,
if she's
I'm-
willing, I'm more than happy to help her, so.
Oh,
we can
excellent.
tag team it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I don't think anybody has a problem doing our tree as always and putting the trees on the sidewalks in front of the businesses.
Thank you very much.
We need a motion. We got to get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can make that happen. So I
Nicole
will.
volunteer to decorate one.
There you go. Yes, if anybody does want to sign up to decorate, they should email villagesoflight@gmail.com. And then in October, we'll make the assignments of where your tree will be located and all that stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
Everybody's good?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Go.
Well, thank you all very, very much. Yeah, I think this is where I leave you. So have a blast.
Thanks for coming.
Good to
Appreciate it.
see you, Maya.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I'll see you all soon.
See you guys. See you.
Bye.
All right. Hey, so what I'd like to do is, well, I want to bounce through this a little bit. I want to hold off on 4.2 for a little bit so we can do any final changes to the code before that. Just so we make sure we do them in order. And we've got GA ordinance 4. I'd like to make that, like I said, we'll bounce. Make that 4.3. I don't know if everybody saw the ordinance that John shot out. And the abatements. So it's something we do every year. It's just it's the best way to word it. It's giving us, oh, I'm sorry.
So basically, the general assistance program,
Yep, sorry.
annually, the state will update the guidelines and the amounts for how much assistance we can provide and the baselines of how much assistance we're allowed to provide in given areas, from housing, food, electricity, heat, etc. And so all that part is merely us adopting the renewed section. It's officially considered a public hearing, and we've advertised for that. But unfortunately, it still, even though it's somewhat of a routine thing that you just have to approve and you go through, this is something that it seems like it's your decision, but it really isn't your decision. But you still have to adopt it to make it, the law of the land here in Newcastle.
So this document was prepared by MMA from state numbers,
That's exactly right. Yeah.
and this is our state funds that are drawn on, but the towns administer those funds.
That's exactly right, Rob. So basically, there's an ordinance that is about 450 pages long that we've adopted. It concurrently, these appendices, which I think are about 7 pages in total, really those are the actionable numbers. But the actual rules for the general assistance program are set by the Department of Health and Human Services. The rules for which are very difficult and challenging to follow. Thankfully, we have an outstanding GA administrator in Michelle Cameron. The last GA administrator wasn't quite as good as Michelle. I can say that with personal experience, because it was me. And but I'll say that this, the program the rules for the program are very strict. They're the basis is that this program is meant to serve the base needs that an individual would have. So housing, food, heat, utilities. There is a variance based upon how many people are in the household. But through that all, we use their formula to determine how much assistance we provide. And then we receive back, because of the size of town we have, receive back 50% of that outlay back from the state government. So we basically, it's a 50-50 partnership, but we administer the program.
Got it.
Any other questions from the GA?
Yeah, so can you explain to me, so when I'm looking at the highlighted numbers here in Lincoln County, persons in household, 868, is that, what does that number represent?
Let me bring it up because I didn't have it in front of me when I was
Yeah.
bear with me just a sec here. Okay. All right. So the Lincoln County, is this on page 2 or it says page 1 on here?
Page 2.
Or no, I'm sorry. Page 3, the one that's highlighted.
Yeah, it's got yellow.
Okay. So yeah, so these numbers reflect the number of persons in the household, and this is the maximum amount of aid that we can provide. So using the state's formulas,
Oh, so that's the
effectively what
dollar?
there's, yeah, that's the dollar amount. So they're saying that if there's a single person in a rent or anywhere in Lincoln County, if they make more than $868, we're unable to provide them aid. That's a very small number. And that's the challenge with the program, is that over and over again, you know, folks come in and they apply for aid and they're over income. Anyone who is in a program, a Social Security disability, anyone who's receiving any aid of that type, often most people on unemployment, they're not going to be eligible for aid. So it's, unfortunately, I don't think it helps as many people as it can. If you're receiving other aid as well, SNAP, you know, any of those programs, TANF, those are deducted from you know, the amount that you can provide. You know, you can provide an aid here. So, you know, yeah, it's a very small number, and the number of people who qualify are really a very small number. What I'd also say about the program is it's really meant as a short-term aid. It's really meant to be, you know, someone is the first time you apply for aid, it's let's say you could fall within those guidelines. So there's an emergency situation, you can fall within those guidelines. The next, to get aid the first time is easy, relatively easy, because you know you fall within the income guidelines. The second time, what the GA administrator in that case, Michelle or I before her, what you're going to do is you're going to look at that person's situation. You're going to say, okay, we're here now. This is aid for 30 days. It could be a food voucher. It could be, you know, rent assistance. Could be any number of different things. All right. Now, phase 2 of that, when you come back, if you want to apply it in 30 days, you have to do a few things for me. It could be applying for jobs. It could be you have to go to Social Security and begin the disability, you know, application. It could be, I mean, you can put those sort of, you know, kind of building blocks for someone to get off, you know, to move off of that program, because a lot of times the GA administrator isn't the person who's writing the check. There's someone who's directing someone and helping them find other sources of aid. It could be sending them to the food pantry, you know, in the church on Tuesday mornings. You know, you're kind of a traffic cop for the different sources of aid. There isn't one-stop shop, so you really, for someone to be able to make it go, if you're in a situation where you're making less than $868 a year as a single person, or I think it's $1,100 if you have a 5-person home, 5 persons in your household, those situations would mean, you know, you're going to have to scramble, you know. And so what we try to do is, what all the GA administrators try to do, is try to be that traffic cop to really help them look in the different sources of funding where they can meet. You know, a lot of times, you know, someone will say, I've got a phone bill. We can't pay for their cell phone bill necessarily, some cases, but often you can't. But I can pay for rent, you know, and maybe someone else will pay you, you know, pay for something that will pay for rent. So you end up, we focus on the bare essentials. There may be other agencies that provide aid in other areas too.
Joel?
So just to be clear, this is per, you just said per year. Do you mean per month or
Per month? Sorry, yeah, per month.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. $868 per year is that's something else. And then, what, do you know what the numbers, like how they figure the the numbers? Is it based on the wealth of the community, and then they figure that that's what the wages are, or how does that work? I just, because we're the highest number in the rural, in the non-metropolitan areas, and then only second to Portland in the entire state. It's just it's interesting how it's divvied.
You know, yeah, I mean, I've seen that before. In fact, I'm just going to share my screen so people can see what we're talking about here. So what I kind of chalked that up as is it directly relates to a rent availability and the inability to find rents in our area compared to say metropolitan areas.
Okay.
You know, I mean, that's what I mean, you look at so Waldo County's 818, Hancock County's 836. So all three of us, you know, kind of in that area, Knox being 792. All three of us, or four of us, if you want to count Knox, you know, coastal counties without a great deal of affordable housing. You know, a lot of development pressures, a lot of single family homes, but not a lot of apartments, not a lot of duplexes. So I think that's a direct reflection of kind of the affordable housing shortage that we have, and why they provide a little bit more of a little bit more of some help for folks in those areas. But still, 868 in a month doesn't go very far at all. So, yeah.
No, it's interesting to look at it just in that. I mean, that it is pretty wild that we're next to Portland. Between Portland and the next one is Lincoln County. So we definitely we have a housing shortage for sure.
And just so you know, I mean, in the 15 years or so that I've done this and looked at this chart, this is the first time I've noticed that type of change. We were always on the high end, but never the highest.
Yeah.
Like this, and I think that speaks to that kind of growing gap. It was an issue 15 years ago, and it's just getting worse and worse. And for folks who are in need, finding available rents, finding available housing, finding something, and really this is about having adequate income to support available housing. You know, you got to be collecting a lot to be able to pay for that single family dwelling. You know, a 2-bedroom. You know, let's say you got to have quite a bit of income to support that.
Any other questions on this? All right, I have a motion.
So
Thank you, Joel. Do I have a second? Rob, thank you. All right, no further discussion. All in favor of passing the general assistance ordinance appendices A through H for the next year? All right, passes 5-0. All right, we'll move on to 4.4 abatements. You guys, you see Jim sent out an abatement.
Yeah.
Actually, 1, 2, 3, 5 abatements. Do I have
I'll move accepting the abatements.
Second.
All right, thank you, Joel and Rob. Any discussion on the abatements, or we can see what they are? Their account numbers 1430, 1624, 392, 396, and 1306, for a total of $2,592.81.
Yep.
No discussion? All in favor of approving the abatements? Passes 5-0. All right, let's jump to 5.2. I threw it on here, core code final draft. I guess I just called it the final draft. If we want to accept these changes, Ben sent out some changes. Sure, if I just browse through this. Yep, Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I looked through it. I had a minute, and I looked through everything. I looked through the explanation. Everything looked good to me.
All right, we want to run through them. John, you want to bring it up, and maybe Rob or Tori, you can kind of run through these.
I can talk through them. I've got them right in front of me.
Which one do you want to start with, Rob?
Let's start with the code, the core zoning code.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to say the other one. No, I'm just
Okay.
kidding. I'm really kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. That was the one that came up first for me, but it's fine. It's not a problem. Hang on. Okay. All right. It's not a blank screen, really.
We'll start on page 12, which is the District 1 definition. Basically, this is just the prior language was a single lot of record, and it's just making clear in that item 1 that a lot or virtual lot. Just pretty much all these changes are just clarifications, cleaning up language, that whether it was from a question that we got or looking up an answer to a question that we've come across these things. So that one's just a very simple language change. Under building standards, number 1, it's just changing the language that the language used to have a phrase measure along a perpendicular angle at ground height. Just again, saying the setback, clearing up that setback language. 2C was just referring to the wrong column. So it's just explaining how to use the table on the left, that you start from your frontage and then you use the adjacent coverage column to get the number that you need. But just there was a typo with the wrong column name there. The next thing on page 14, and pretty much all of the other district pages, we just added the word permitted, just to make it clear that these are in a district that lists which building types can be used. These are the permitted. It's just, again, a very minor change, but just to try to make things more clear. And that change is on most of the districts. There are 4 districts that do not regulate buildings, including D1. And so that table is not there, but every district that has that table, that appears there. The next place to go is 46. So this, under building types, it's just again, clarifying the language, cleaning it up, fewer words, but no change in what the words are doing. Under number of buildings, 3A, it referred to a barn building type before, just again, getting a word that we're not really using in the code anymore out. Then under 3B1 at the bottom of the page there, we had a question from a resident about a number of the standards in building standards that have design elements to them, and those should not apply in District 1. District 1 does not, as I previously had said, does not have a buildings table in it, so it's not regulating building types. So these things would not apply. But just to make it explicit, we've added the language that, and this is going to be the case in many of the standards in building standards, that it does not apply in a district if there's not a permitted buildings table. So in District 1, in SD campus, SD conservation, and one other, we're not regulating buildings or building types. So this just makes it explicit that these standards do not apply in those districts. And then, as I said, that we're going to see that in multiple places throughout building standards. And then the final thing on page 102, there are a couple of definitions.
Can I jump back one?
Yeah.
Because this is something that came up in the meeting we had a couple weeks ago on Thursday. The
Yes.
materials.
Right. Okay. Good point. Yeah. If
And
back,
that was a question someone had, and it was about the 4 or 5 more materials that you can use. So that doesn't apply to that wouldn't apply to the rural area.
correct. And reading it with the understanding that buildings were not being regulated, the intent was that was not applying to D1. But again, this is just making it very explicit and more clear that standard does not apply in those districts that don't have the table.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was there were a number of issues in here that I had a conversation with the person who brought it up at the public hearing.
Yeah.
And so we're just making it clear that these things do not apply there. So then back down on 102, just the definition is just, again, it was phrased slightly different, but just to make clear how a setback is measured. And then below that, shade tree had additional language that talked about different species of trees, and that was just taken out because that's not relevant. So those are the changes in the core zoning code.
Great. Thank you, Rob.
And then we can look at the roads. Page 6 just has the phrase standards of this code ordinance. I think it said code or something, just a very minor word change. The bigger change on the next page is just, again, to make it very clear when this applies and when it doesn't apply. And make explicit that if you've got a road or driveway that you're doing maintenance on, you do not need a permit for that the ordinance does not apply to general maintenance. And then
Joel has a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment just to further explain that point, because it's I deal with it in other towns with reconstruction of home, and it's usually it applies is the difference between doing a full renovation on a house and tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding it. And so I think that's the applicability that we're looking at in this versus replacing a culvert or doing, adding some more material to the base. We're talking about when you're doing a full reconstruction.
That's a good point. That's a good way to say it.
But just to make it clear, because it's again, this is the thing with codes that's tricky, is if you're not working with them every day, it can be hard to understand it. But that's what that means is there's a big difference between those two things. So.
Yep, and then on page 8, in administration, again, is just trying to beat the point that Joel just made, that maintenance is not does not require a permit, but if you're doing substantial reconstruction, then you do. And then finally in definitions, the next page. So the driveway, the main thing, the real substantive change here is that we're taking the 500-foot length out of the definition of driveway. And the ironic thing is that that definition comes from the existing land use ordinance. So right now, under our current land use ordinance, driveway is limited to 500 feet, but we're removing that here. And then we just have definitions for general maintenance and substantial reconstruction to bring clarity. So I'd say in all these changes, removing the 500-foot is a change. Otherwise, everything is about making things more clear and removing any ambiguity.
Great. Thank you, Rob. So if anybody have any objections to these changes? Is everybody good with moving forward with them?
No.
Yes. All right, then I just need a motion to accept the code, I guess, as written. Oh,
The move.
all right, thank you, Rob, Tor. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of accepting this as the final draft of our code? Passes 5-0. Great. Let's bounce back up to 4.2 then for the referendum vote for our special town, for the special town meeting warrant for November 3 of 2020. Everybody saw the question?
Yeah.
And the explanation for how it was written, everybody's good with that?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Thank you,
Second.
Joel. Tor, thank you for the second. Any discussion on it? All right. I guess all in favor of setting the town warrant, Town Newcastle warrant for special town meeting Tuesday, November 3, 2020. I'm not going to read it. It hasn't changed except for the explanation at the bottom. So all in favor? That passes 5-0. Great. Moving on, we're gonna move on to 5.1 Academy Hill Roads projects. Is Seth with us?
Yep, I'm here, Brian.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, you want to give us an update on Academy Hill and where everything stands? And looks really nice. I just got back tonight and came down. It looked good.
Yeah, no, we're moving along nicely. Yeah, we're on the home stretch. I think we've got, I'd like to think probably by the end of next week, we should be really just picking up some details and stuff. I've got the final coat of pavement to get down. That's the biggest thing left. And I got to get all the structures raised, but we're trying to do that just before surface pavement so that people don't have to avoid all the manholes and stuff in the middle of the street. But we wrapped up the intersection improvements for the DOT today, got that paved. No, it's coming along. It's coming along nicely. The curbing, got one small area we got to fix tomorrow, but other than that, the curbing's done. We'll have all the sidewalk finished, built this week. That will be all done. So we're coming to it. It's getting really close.
Great. No, looks good. Anybody have any questions for Seth on Academy Hill?
No, it's looking good.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I want to compliment you too, Seth. Looks good.
So
All
Seth,
the
go ahead. Sorry.
all the light stuff is all in. The only thing that we have left to put in the ground is just the bases for the crosswalk signals, which should be finished on Thursday. So depending on schedule, we'll either get them in Friday or Monday. And then that's everything earthwork wise, as far as anything to go in the ground. We were able to secure 2 locations for power. So we've got that figured out and situated. So we'll have power for the street lights to be put in. So that was all worked out. We got that. We fixed that yesterday. Got that all done. So yeah, I think it would be great. I put out my last update, which hopefully you all got. I'd like to, as the end becomes a little bit clearer and we have an actual date, I'd like to get together and post some sort of ribbon cutting. So we'll get some information and get you guys' thoughts out on something. But I think it would be good for the town and the area that lived through this for the last 3 or 4 months and the rest of the town to come see it. So I'll organize some sort of ribbon cut. And I'll get with John and we'll put something together so that we'll invite all you guys and whoever else wants to come down. And I know with the COVID stuff, we'll have to kind of keep it a little tempered, but we'll do the best we can to maintain distance and try to recognize the accomplishment.
Sounds like Joe.
The only question I have is so at the end of this, you're going to provide us a document that shows all the, all the new drainage or all the drainage as it exists. Because I know, and whatever water lines you've come across that you didn't know were there and knew were there, and just a document so that the town has something that we can use in the future, just so that we know what we're dealing with.
Well, now, Joel, it sounds like that you would like to have something so that we can reference and not do this all over again.
I'd also kind of like to have the bloopers reel. Like, I'd like to see all the pictures of crazy stuff you dug up. Like, just from a renovator standpoint, I come across some crazy stuff too, and
Oh, yeah.
what you come across has been pretty neat. So I'd like to see it for real.
To answer your question, yes, what we'll do is we'll print off a clean set of plans and provide a red line drawing of all of the connections and stuff that we did and found and indicate to the best of our ability. Like, we'll know where gate box locations are. So we won't know the exact location of the lines, but we can show like where we hit them, where they go between, point A and B, who knows, but we can indicate like, found this here and found that there and blah, blah, blah. And of course, the drawings have the location of our new drainage pipes all on them and all our field inlets and all that stuff already, because those are all installed per plan. But anything that we did extra or changed, or intersection improvements, for example, with Mills Road and stuff, I'll indicate all that on a red line drawing.
Okay.
Great.
Yep.
We shared
Yep,
that
yep.
with Rights All Bay, right? So they can
We
update
share-
their plans.
Yeah, they yep, that's going to be that's definitely an interesting topic that we'll have to discuss. But they have some plans, but unfortunately their plans only are of recent past. So anything that was done in the late long time ago, 100 years or so ago, they got no idea. So this 4-inch line, for example, there's just no documentation of it. There's nobody knows where the valves are. It's not the current GSB, SD or WD's fault, because all this was done prior to any of them actually being here or in a position of management of the system. However, with that said, there's very little documentation on where their utility is, so it does make it very challenging, to say none the least.
Right.
Yes, they're more than welcome to have a copy of anything that we have. It's not proprietary or anything, so we'll share whatever we have for them. But on top of that, all of their gate boxes that we have found now are all raised to the surface. So that will help them a lot, because at least they can find them and access them.
Right. Great.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the rest of your projects. Now that we're winding up Academy Hill, but all the other town projects we've got scheduled for this fall. And
The month of October, we'll be out and regrading dirt roads again, just to dust them over before snow flies. So that's on the list to get done in October. The ditching on Lewis Hill Road, we actually completed the hill portion. I apologize because I can't give you the exact date, but roughly 2 weeks ago-ish, week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that
Right.
we completed the hill portion for that. So that's actually done and been completed. So we'll be finishing that probably late October. I'll get out there and just do the rest of the ditching and get that all situated. I anticipate probably the 3rd week in October we'll start Stonebridge, get that reclaimed and get the base. I've lined up the reclaiming guys to come in and do the section on Academy Hill and Stonebridge at the same time. So we'll do that 400 or 500 feet on Academy Hill, and then do Stonebridge Circle all at the same time, and we'll work our way around that. Stonebridge Circle isn't a monumental task. There's just a half a dozen culverts in there to do, grade it and pave it. So it's a week project at best. So we'll get that done, but it'll just be end of October. Obviously, we'll be watching, weather and making sure that's, hopefully keep our fingers crossed. I know we need the rain, but let's just temper that with a moderate amount of rain, and not every day type of rain would be great. That will help us out a lot, but we will get that accomplished this fall. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. And the only other thing that I have to get in the schedule will be the surface on Pump and Cross, which again is just a couple of 100 tons. So it's only a few hours worth of work. I just got to plug it into a day. I don't have a day right now. I'm waiting to see what the schedule is going to be, but we will get that just as soon as we can. It's not a big project, so we'll get that in and get that done as well. I got to coordinate with the districts too, because there's probably going to have to be some structures that need to be adjusted out through there, because some of them are already fairly low. So I got to get with Leanna and see if she can get some riser rings so that we can adjust the structures up on those two streets.
All right, those are we're kind of shimming and paving. Are we doing nothing more than that, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. This is just a stopgap measure to buy us a little bit of time, just to smooth up the surface, and until we get to a point where we can address them on a more correct basis. This is just a way to buy us a little bit of time and give us a smooth surface for a few years.
Great. Sounds like you have a busy October for us.
We do. We have a very busy October all the way around.
Right. Anything else you need to know about, Seth?
Nope. I owe the board an apology. I've been meaning to try to get with John. I will have budget for you. I do have budget stuff started for Academy Hill. I've got a whole bunch of things. I'm in the process of line iteming that out. I need to get with Andrew on Academy Hill as far as the budget goes, just to verify numbers and what we had in for allowances. And I'm going off contract documents, so I want to make sure that all my T's are crossed. Tomorrow looks to be a rain day, so it is number one priority for me to finish tomorrow morning. I wanted to have it for you tonight, so I apologize. I've just been really busy, and I haven't got all of it to you. But when I do get it to you, I'll make it self-explanatory, and John will have a chance to review it prior to it coming out to you, so that if there's any questions, we can answer anything. I'll try to do my best to line item it out as best as possible.
That's all the change orders as well, or?
Yep, exactly. I'll have everything. Not to sound, please don't take this the wrong way, but I'll dumb it down as much as possible, so it literally is, you can see, line item by line item, and you can see the changes and what we have. It's hard because you have to remember that at a request of the board, we changed the way this bid was done to a lump sum as a request of a couple of citizens. So when you do that and you take the line item bidding out of it, as Tor I'm sure can attest to, change orders and stuff then become a little convoluted, because the customer likes to see what they want for changes, yet on the same time you bid everything lump sum. So I'm going to try to provide you the best I can with line item fashion on change orders, even though all of our numbers are all lump sum in the entire project. So it's a little cumbersome, to say none the least, but that was at request of the board after listening to a couple of folks. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you read this.
Yeah. Right.
Because the original way that we bid it was all line itemed out, so that would have been way easier and clearer to see the individual items and blah blah blah. So I'm going to do my best to go back through and re-line item the change orders.
All right, appreciate that.
Yep.
Do you have any more questions for Seth? No. Well, great. Thank you, Seth. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate you guys' support. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. We'll move on to our warrants. We have a town warrant for $86,782.33 and the Academy Hill warrant for $210,003.71. Motion?
So moved.
Joel, second. Thank you, Tor. Any discussion? Didn't see anything that jumped out at me. All right, all in favor? Passes 5-0. John, you want to go over your administrator notes at all, or sorry, town manager's report? Sorry.
Town manager, yeah. No, I think I've couple quick things. The letter to citizens went out on. I think most people got it Monday in the mail. So that was a very quick and fast process. I think we should try to do that again as we get into the month of October. I mean, I just having heard all those folks at the public hearing say, I didn't hear any, I don't know anything about this. I don't know what's going on. For whatever reason, we can't, I don't think we can rely upon, external sources, newspapers, TV, what have you, to get the word out. Facebook isn't hitting everybody. The email list isn't hitting everybody. So I really hope we can maybe one or maybe two other times between now and the election, just share information, not in a persuasive way per se, but in a, these are the facts of the situation. So, for anyone who saw that letter, I mean, basically there was a couple letters of explanation to say, actually right now, where we would have been right now, would be at a special town meeting. That is not going to occur. And instead to move, to November 3rd and the actual question. So folks are able to see it. Everyone has the question in front of them. I think it came across. I think, there was some real clarity there in terms of what the question means, which I think is a really big step forward for us to at least to start that ball rolling. I think we have a great deal of dialogue that's going on. I think that the town right now, from what I'm hearing in the office, and I think for Tor, when he comes in, and Rob, they come in after the Q&A sections and the pop-ups, and just where I'm here, I think there's a lot more dialogue about what's going on with the code. 2 years ago, we were getting almost no phone calls to the office about the code, the character code that was proposed at that time. That is completely different now. There's an engaged group of folks that are talking about this, good, bad, and different. I think they're engaged. They want to learn more. I had a great conversation with someone about rural highway today, and some concerns they had about that. But I think that there's a dialogue happening, and that was the problem. I think, from my perspective, 2 years ago, good, bad, or indifferent in terms of how the vote turned out, there wasn't a lot of dialogue. There wasn't a lot of communication of, resident to resident. This is what I'm thinking. This is how I feel. This is what I think needs to get done. And I think that's just a healthy thing for the community. Again, whatever happens in this November, apart from it, I think it's a very healthy thing for our community to be having those conversations and saying, "Hey, I feel this way. I want that. I think it should be this way," and then also being confronted with the same. And what I'm trying to do is say, "Okay, well, I want you to understand the balance." There are pros in the direction. There's negatives, sure, that perhaps the person's calling about, say, this is overly restrictive or whatever. There's an opposite side of that, and yeah, there's restrictions here, but there's more opportunities here, and so that's what land use really is. It's just trying to weigh out the pros and cons of everything, and I think so. I think people are having that conversation. I think it's going quite well. So I think that's great. Certainly, we're going to continue to use the website. I mean, that's the Mailchimp, email list, and trying to get the word out that way. But I think the mailers may be our best way in just getting it to everybody's mailbox. So I think we'll continue to try to use that, and we want to do that. Ted, Larry Seidlinger, and I are trying to get together to try to figure out a format for some members of the board to talk with LCTV and have maybe a sit down to talk about the code. What is it? Why are we doing this? Larry and Bobby Weir talked about it on the What's Up show about what's good about, or not what's good, what's going on, because they read about what's going on in the news. And so they had a brief little bit on it. But I think, having a 30-minute show to say, hey, this is what this is, because I think in some cases the public hearing really didn't necessarily represent, that side of it. So talking about that. And the street light situation is moving quite quickly. I expect at your next meeting we'll have the investment grade audit available for you to review. I'm meeting with them tomorrow on a Zoom call to talk about what they're proposing, and I will try to start working on financing options so that potentially you could take some action. I don't know if it's your next meeting, but I would think by the end of the month to take some action to get that started so we can start getting in the schedule for them to order lights and start installing those lights. So I also need to get to Seth because we need to talk about with new poles being placed as part of the Academy Hill project and the relocation of those, making sure we have the right number of lights and not overdoing it, not underdoing it, because that's obviously a very important piece of this as well. But yeah, and then lastly, we're doing some election prep. This is tax due date season, so people are paying taxes. We have a lot going on in the office, but also people have started with the absentees, or not, haven't started. It's going full boat. We're hoping we'll have our ballots by the end of this week. I would expect people won't receive any ballots who've already requested them until next week. So if you've already requested a ballot, great, but unfortunately, you're not going to probably likely see that in your mailbox until next week. In addition, the state of Maine has come out with a new service that if you've requested your ballot online, they will send you updates on, through your email address as to where that ballot is in their process. So effectively, when we release those ballots into the mail, that will send out a message to those email addresses to say, hey, this ballot is coming your way in the mail. So it's a new service that the Secretary of State's office is doing. We don't have to really do anything other than our regular tracking of how absentee ballots come in, go out, and all of that. So we're doing that. We've got a number of people, fantastic number of people who are volunteering and wanting to help out to make the election happen. Had a great chat with Clayton today about moving into the truck space that we used for the public hearing. So talking about logistics and just trying to do the best we can to try to make this as successful an election as we possibly can. So we're getting a lot of folks who are helping out, and it's really great to see. So let's hope we can keep that momentum going. 35 days from right now, when November 3rd hits and all of this, everything that everyone has been talking about on so many different fronts, comes to a boil, and we can see what happens.
We should make sure everybody's aware that on our absentees, if they don't feel safe mailing it back to us, we have a drop box at the town office they can bring it to and ensure that it's received. So
absolutely, yeah, no, great point, Brian. Yeah, we've got that drop box. I'm actually looking into trying to do some ways to modify. There's a lock on it right now, so over the weekend there's concern that it might get plugged up because so many people will be dropping off ballots. So trying to find some way to modify it with keeping the door open, doing some things to try to keep it safe in there. Also, we're also looking at some other ways in which we can try to do walk-up absentee balloting. In the past, people wanted to walk up an absentee ballot, basically early vote effectively. It was much easier. So we're trying to do some things with some windows and trying to find a way to make it much easier for people to cast their ballots in the office as they need. So it's a process, but we've got great staff, and we've got some residents who've been so awesome in working with our folks to try to make these things happen. So it's we're getting there.
Joel,
Did you send back that that first lockbox you got, the first drop box?
No, I still have it.
Do you want to set up a second one, or not really?
I didn't want to cut another hole in the wall. Was the only concern. The state is offering some options to external, drop boxes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of concerned about having. I mean, some towns have done them. You may have seen them like on the news. Like Gorham had one out in front. It looks like a big mailbox. what do we do with it after we're done with the vote? I mean, there's some questions I have about how it all works in the end, but I think we can modify what we have. I think we can put a chute together and kind of create a box for them so people can get their ballots in. Worst case scenario, Michelle, Shelley, Harriet, anybody's walking, driving by, go in, just empty them and put them in the vault. So I think that there's ways we can make sure those ballots don't get stuck. But yeah, that's something we're going to have to work on in the next week to 10 days. So if anyone's got thoughts about how to make sure that shoot goes well, let me know. Stop by.
Wanda, go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering if there's any thought about when we're going to open the town hall to something more than just appointments only. I mean, I wanted to drop off my taxes this morning, but I had modified one of my mom's bills because she sold her property, and I just wanted to tell them about it. And it's like an act of Congress to get in because I didn't have an appointment. And I'm like, but I just need to explain what I did on this tax bill that I want you to see. And it just seems like, even if people had to wait outside, there should be a way to stop in and us open up the town hall a little bit more at this time, other than just appointments. It's really, I mean, I felt like a thug this morning, like I was breaking the law because I just needed to get in and talk to somebody for a minute, just to explain what I had done on a tax bill. So, and I know other people are feeling that way. Calling for an appointment isn't always convenient. We've got 3 people in the office. I've never been in there when there's been more than like one person up at the counter. It just seems like we could do some drop in, but so do we have any thoughts of when we might open up more to the general public?
Oh, I think the main thing is that the election is the biggest issue going. So I think election day is certainly a benchmark in all this, and getting through the election is the most important thing. I think that I'm certainly glad to talk with everyone in the office again about it in terms of where we are right now. I mean, I think that generally the last time we had a chat about this, which was about a month ago, the feeling was that it was working well and there weren't a lot of conflicts for folks that were trying to come in. Never mind folks in the office, but the folks calling, that there wasn't a lot of, well, geez, I want to be able to do this and I can't do that. I will say this week, I've heard, there have been a couple of those situations like you were talking about, Wanda, where, I wanted to drop off my bill. I wanted to get my receipt. How do I get my receipt? And in the past, people will drop in the mail and they'll put a self-addressed stamped envelope and we mail them back a receipt. But for someone who, maybe wants to do it at the time of, how do we do that? So, in those cases, we've, if there hasn't been a situation, we've waved everyone in and come on in and take care of it. The challenge is, of course, is when we've got people backed up who are also registering cars, and then we've got that duality we're handling. So I'll talk to everybody in the office, and we'll have a chat tomorrow, and just to see what their sense of what the customers are saying, and I'll send you guys an email in terms of what their sense is and kind of a plan of attack to reopen without that. I still want to limit the number of people in the office in terms of the number of people who are there. I'm not comfortable with having folks in the office and standing and waiting like we've had. And that may mean people waiting in their cars. It may mean, whatever that is. But certainly that lobby can get congested. That happens. And certainly around tax time, for example, that's something we often see. So I'll get with them and I'll talk to them about it and see if we can come up with a better solution than what we've got right now.
John, you want to check and see what the towns around us are doing too?
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
Because I know I was in Vermont yesterday, and their town office in a larger town than ours was still doing by appointment only, and door was locked. And they actually changed their book drop-off mailbox per se to their ballot mailbox, absentee voting, drop-off too. So.
Okay.
I think a lot of the I think a lot of the local people around here, and I could be wrong, but I think they are allowing people in. And we spent an awful lot of money on this town hall to keep people safe. And now, I mean, we could have spent a lot less money if we wasn't going to let people in, and kind of, got the same effect to keep people safe. So, and I hear that. And because we did spend a lot of money on the town hall, so that we, in preparation to let people in. So just voicing some concerns that I've heard.
We did, and our main concern is keeping our staff safe because they're the ones that are in there 40 hours a week. It's not so much the individual that walks and is there for 5 minutes. So, Joe.
I'd just say that I think until the limits really change on how many people we can safely let into the office at a time, the least frustrating thing for people in town would be to continue to make appointments. I mean, if you're there and you have a thing, you can always try and buzz in, and if there's no one there, then I'm sure they'll be able to deal with you. But it can create a lot of frustration if everyone is trying to get in, where we can only safely allow 2 people in at a time. We just create a situation where we have line outside, and it becomes hard to manage. So that's just the reality we're in to keep everyone safe.
So you come back with John. Let us know next meeting or earlier or sooner. So
Will do.
and what are we
Thank
doing, guys? Are we still doing pop-up meetings? Juan, are you still doing one tomorrow night from 6 to 7?
No, Ellen and I hadn't planned anything going forward yet, so we didn't have much success the last couple. So we haven't planned anything. I've been a little busy, so hadn't had much time to think about it.
Okay, Tor.
Yeah, we had one resident or one business owner there today, and I think a meeting with 2 people on Thursday. So there's still interest. I would say, I mean, I'm committed. As far off, as we need to go, because I think we're going to get to a place, especially at public hearing in a couple more weeks. It seems to trigger interest and questions. So I think we got to be available to answer that. And I think the best way to do it, until the weather is just conducive to meet outside and review questions. And so I'll stay on my Tuesday, Thursday, bit, an hour noontime, and if somebody can step up to Saturdays, and we could do that for the next couple of Saturdays. I think it would be good. Last weekend, Saturday, I don't think anybody showed up, right?
Yeah, no, we didn't have anyone on Saturday, but I think I agree with Tor. I think we want to offer people the opportunity, and so continue to do that. As long as we can, weather-wise, and so yeah, I can. I'll plan on Saturday, and I guess last Saturday I gave up around 11:30. So encourage people if they're going to come. Don't wait till the last minute on that 10 to noon time slot. But we'll put ourselves out there and give people the opportunity to come in and ask questions.
Yeah, Rem Briggs has also been. Sorry, Joel.
I was gonna say I'll jump in on Saturday with you, and I think Wanda's onto something too with the evening stuff. I think that's a good idea. Yeah,
one thing
as things progress, we could figure out, maybe find a night, and just keep
I would urge people, if they can't make any of the times that we have scheduled, to call the town office and say when they're available, and we'll see if we can figure out a way to make it work. I mean,
Right.
I can be flexible, so I think if people have constraints that they can't do at the times we've said, we'll figure out a way to meet with them.
I think that would be good, because like when Ellen and I have gone and nobody shows up, you just kind of feel like you wasted your time. I mean, yeah, you've been there and you're there for them, but if they don't come, or if you knew somebody was going to be there, I think that would be that would be helpful. Ellen and I did talk about maybe trying to do something in Sheepscot. We just gotta get together and come up with enough leeway to let people know. So I'll touch base with her in the next couple of days and see if we can come up with a time.
Right, yeah, because we have, excluding this week, we got another 4 full weeks that we could,
Yeah.
that we can work on this and get people to come in and, ask their questions. If they don't understand the code, come talk to us. If you got questions on it, concerns, just because we kind of finalize this tonight for the November 3rd vote, doesn't mean we're not going to be working on changes, to come back in the June town meeting with, because there's other things that we know as a board that need to be fixed and changed, and things that we haven't had time to put into this code up to this point with trying to get it ready to be voted on in November. So, people have to realize that they need to bring us still their concerns so we can start looking at these changes. So. All right. So for now,
I just want
go ahead.
add, I think it works for both of us, the residents and the selectmen, because as I talk to residents, and citizens, and hear their questions and the concerns. One comment's one thing, 2 comments are another thing. But when you start to hear 3 and 4 comments about the same concern, it definitely puts a flag up, and just, it's something to make note of, I guess. I mean, we've addressed a lot of these concerns over the last few weeks. These are things that I think we've already executed. But, as we go forward, now that the warrant's set and the code is set, anything that comes up, people shouldn't think that there's no point anymore. The point is to keep on hearing what people have to say, So I encourage people to make a point to come out.
Yeah. Joe?
I'd also say that if people hear things from other people or get anything that seems contrary to what we've been saying, to again ask the questions, because a lot of the it actually worked out pretty well. A lot of the clarifications in the driveway ordinance came from that document that was being circulated that had a lot of someone's interpretations that weren't accurate to what the document actually said. So we made those clarifications only to make it, very clear what the intent was. But you can't do that with everything, because it's legal language, and if people do have questions about it, it's good to get those answered. So.
Right. All right. So go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I mean, one thing I think that's important, and one sort of criticism that we've heard a lot about the last code, was the fact that so many changes were made at the last minute. And I think what all of these small clarification issues that have been brought and made over the last 3-4 weeks or so, that are really clarifications rather than changes of dramatic policy, don't dramatically impact the intent or the direction of the core code as it's been presented and as it's been posted since March. So folks who read it in March aren't reading a dramatically different document here on the 28th of September. They may read it differently because it's clearer. It may have a more clear focus as to in some of those areas that we talked about earlier in the meeting. The other thing is that there are issues that people don't want. The one message we heard is they didn't want dramatic changes right up until the moment of. So though we can't make changes any longer in the document, I think it's important that as you guys continue to have these conversations, whether it's in a pop-up or on the street or as people call the office, these are all part, and each one of you, I'm sure, keeping a running tally in your own minds as to these 3-4 people that we're talking about that with the same concern as Tor says, that this is not a finished, nothing is ever in town government a finished document. We're all trying to make a more perfect union, right? So the idea of trying to make this better doesn't end November 3rd. It doesn't end November 4th. It goes on forever. And so this effort while what the code that will be voted on in November is what it is and what's presented tonight, the conversation of making that document better or what have you continues. And I think that's an important message that, you know, folks need to understand, that that's just how towns operate. That's not a, you know, anything specific. I'm having trouble hearing you. Sorry, my Siri on my watch just talked to me. But 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 you know, this is a situation where I think we are, nothing is ever solid. Everything is always moving in a town government. And I think, you know, the directions you guys have had to make, the 5 of you have had over the last month, 6 weeks, just show that how you're trying to hear what the community is saying and trying to react to it. The same is happening with what you hear from from the residents on what's in the code. And though what's locked in on November 3rd is, or today for November 3rd, is what it is, I think as you continue to hear those, and I think perhaps the more the board can reflect upon that and say, hey, we're hearing this, we hear this, this is something we need to address, you know, after November 3rd, November 4th, November 5th, and on. And I think by doing that, people feel like they're being heard. They feel they're being represented. They understand there's some limitations by how the 5 of you operate, but if they know that you're hearing their priorities and you're representing those, I think people will feel much better about whatever the result is on November 3rd, because you know, the selectmen are hearing what they have to say and representing those views. So just my kind of thing after hearing everyone call in the office. I just wanted to kind of say that, because I think this, you know, we're hearing a lot in the office, and I think you guys are making the right step in trying to lock it down. But now, you know, it doesn't change. You know, you're always going to hear, and you're always going to try to make it better. And I think that's an important message for people to hear.
All right, Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that. You know, I've said before that the structure of the core zoning code is designed to facilitate that you know, constructive engagement and change over time. So I think that John's absolutely right, that we will continue to make changes as the town evolves, as we learn more about how the code works, that by design, we bake that into the core zoning code.
Yeah, people have to realize, I think, if this passes, how simple it is to change. We're not, you know, like our current land use ordinance, if we change something small, we're rewriting the whole thing because it's scattered throughout it, where this one's actually sectionalized. So we make a change to, say, rural highway, it's a minor change to the code itself. We're not redrafting 104 pages. We're changing 2 or 3, you know, that would affect it. So I think people have to get that in their head for how simple this is to fix now. And I shouldn't say fix, change, you know, and to make it a better code that works better for the town as we move forward. It's a living document, as you guys have said. So you know, I think people just have to realize that. So, again, you got questions on the code, you don't understand it, as we've heard at least one person say, well, can't vote, I'm not gonna vote for anything I don't understand. Well, come talk to us so you can understand the document, you know, because if you're not, that's your own, you know, ignorance. I'll say that you're choosing not to learn about a document. You're just going to sit in the dark. Come talk to us. All 5 of us are available. People that were on the committee are still available to talk to. You know, reach out. We're doing Tuesdays and Thursdays still. We're doing Saturdays. Maybe some more Wednesday nights or some other night. We can pull together some evenings. Juan is going to try to put something together to go out to Sheepskit. Maybe we can pull in that section of town. You know, so we've got another month to work on this. The code set as it is, read it. There won't be any further changes. You know, show up to vote on the 3rd, or get your absentee ballot, I should say, is the best way of doing it. You know, let's get this thing in motion and start moving forward. Town has other things we need to have to concentrate on besides our core zoning code. All this will propel us into the future in many good ways. So. Dora, you have your hand up?
No, but I will just say this. I think you know, I think the best way to think about this is not to just try to read it like a book, but to try to think about it. What would I do if I could do something on my property, you know, if I were gonna do something, I had this idea maybe of doing an addition on my house or building something here, doing this, or even what, you know, imagine what your neighbor might do. Um, it's you've got to really apply some kind of real life, you know, even if it's hypothetical, you got to apply some kind of hypothetical situation to it. And all the conversations that I've had, well, minus maybe a few, which were just generally what was this code about, which is a great conversation anyway. But most of the people that come to these meetings to talk to, you know, the pop-up studios have something very specific that they're concerned about. What if I did this? How does this affect me? So it's applying, you know, some idea to the code. That's really how you get a good idea of how it works.
I've talked to a couple of people that actually said they took their existing house and tried to build it through the new code.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And see how simple it is. You know, and with that, it brought up questions.
Mhm.
You know, things that they were lost on for understanding that, you know, that have been answered since. So, and they understand how well it works. On that, anything else? Are we all good? We're actually not going to meet on the 5th. We're going to have a night off.
Please.
Don't speak too soon. You never know.
That's right. You never know.
Something might fall.
All right.
Our
Our next
big
meeting.
wins tomorrow, so you never know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, the 13th, for Monday's Columbus Day. So great. Well, if that's it, motion to adjourn. Thank you, Wanda. Second by Rob. All right, guys. All in favor? All right. Good night, all.
All
Night.
right.
Night.
Have a great week.